Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and the New York Subliners have certainly been the biggest surprise of this season so far. Shocking how bad they've been, to be honest, especially in the hardpoints. Most pros are talking about the possibility of them making a serious change after this major, and if it needs to be a two-man change, surely one of Clayster and Crimsix has to go. Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Really upset the channel, thank you very much indeed for doing that. Firstly, this from Los Angeles Guerrillas, very soon indeed, I guess it will sometime later today, they're coming out with the Warpath first episode, behind the scenes type documentary. Really cool stuff, excited to see what New York are doing on the content side, even though their team might not be doing so hot right now, but also Los Angeles Guerrillas following these boys behind the scenes as well. This, just to mention real quick on the Clayster and Exclusive Ace front, like Exclusive Ace, man, what a legend of the COD scene this guy is. Like, the pros were asking him a few days ago, can you just test, like, you know, what the best class setup is going to be with the auto, because the pros are like, okay, we have so many attachments, what's actually the best? Ace is just that guy to go through and test everything and figure out what's best in theory. He's come up with the following. So as the flanks say, the in-depth testing on the auto has determined two best classes, one for all-around play and one for maximum accuracy, because with ranked play coming out, he was like, okay, maybe I should actually figure out what the best auto class is, because a lot of pro players have been saying, look, the MP40 is just running ranked right now, and it's actually tough to get away with using an auto. So these theoretically are the best classes, I believe. There's a very small change here to the underbarrel between these two classes, but this apparently is the best all-around one, the Anastasia Sniper, the Slate Reflector, most things that most people use. But yeah, the stippled grip, also the F8 stabilizer, right, which is, well, is banned or is GA'd, of course, which shots are used accidentally on the MP40, but on the auto, it's actually perfectly legal. So it's just like one of these things with GAs, right, that makes you think, okay, wow, like, you know, obviously Shotzi, I guess he knew it was GA'd, but on the MP40, picked it accidentally, but it's like when you've got attachments being banned on one rifle but not on the SMG, it's like, you know, come on, you can gotta forgive players for making a mistake, which probably they would make at some point or another. This is one version of the class, this is the other version of the class, very similar, but with the M1941 hand stop here on the underbarrel as well. Pretty much the only differences between the two of them. So yeah, definitely some other changes you guys might consider making, but I mean, yeah, this is the most accurate version in theory. This, I think, was kind of the kind of wall test that he did right here in terms of some of the grips that he can have on it. And I think on the whole, he's recommending the stipple. So interesting stuff. You guys can test out yourself, but I thought it was pretty cool to look at regardless. That, oh, well, Ace getting involved in the pros, obviously pretty happy that they might actually find out, well, a setup that can work for them in the long term. Let's dive into the New York stuff then, because right now, these are the CDL point standings, and as you can see, New York aren't even on the screen. FaZe number one, they've got 50 points. I mean, same with Paris Legion. I can't avoid an opportunity to throw a roast in there when the chance presents itself. But yes, Paris Legion in 12th, 5 in 15. In fairness, New York not much better. They did win a series though up against the Boston Breach. But yeah, FaZe, they're 5 in 0. London, Thieves right behind in top 2. Obviously, of course, came top 4. That means they play Surge in round 1, and that's kind of how the bracket goes. Now, Subliners, because they're 11th, they have not got the easiest game on their hands, right? If they'd have qualified a little bit of a better seed, they would have got a better round 1 matchup depending on who drops down for winners. But it's not going to be easy for them at all. We'll have a look at that here in just a couple of seconds. These were their series results right this stage. And of course, look, the numbers look pretty bad, but not absolutely terrible. But when you realize they didn't win a hardpoint in all of this time, it gets pretty shocking, right? They got 3-0 by Seattle. They got beaten 3-1 by Los Angeles Thieves, 3-1 by the Guerrillas. They beat Boston Breach. They lost to FaZe. In fairness, they did not have the easiest run here, right? They played a very hot Seattle right at the start of the stage. They played LA Thieves, top 2 team in the game, arguably. They played, well, FaZe, number 1 team in the game. They beat Boston. They lost to LAG, also a solid squad, middle of the back team. But if New York were any good, they would have come 2 in 3 here at the very least. They end up 1 in 4, and especially for guys like Clayster and Crimsix, like the record they have together as a duo, like, of course, like, they made a roster change, but after just 1 weekend, right, Neptune was out, Royalty came in. I still don't really think that's a long-term solution to this team. Therefore, you've got to think if this team goes into the major and underperforms, which they've only got 1 more match to play at the major if they lose it, then, like, you've got to think, what do we do here, right? At the same time, my expectation was, going into this major, teams that underperform might make some sort of sub-swap, which New York have, of course, already done this season, but and other teams might do that as well if they underperform. But I was thinking after stage 2, that might be the time where teams make some serious blockbuster moves. And that's the issue really with New York, is that you've got Clayster and Crimsix, 2 veteran players, top 3 players of all time, legends in the Call of Duty scene, both sitting on your roster. You can't really just trade one to another team, because, I mean, they're going to have to need one of those players, your trade partner, and also you're going to have to get something in return. The contract, the buyout, I'm sure will be absolutely immense in those type of situations anyway. And who's actually going to want to make a trade for these guys right now when other teams so far are actually kind of finding their feet right now in the season? And New York is seemingly the only team that's in complete collapse. But I mean, anyway, there's been so much discussion on it. This also from TacticalRab Academy, right? They tweeted what Ben was saying on the flank. He was even suggesting putting like Crim or Clay on a sub. Now, Crim I don't think is the worst idea in the world, having him as the SMG partner to Hydra. But I mean, Clayster on an SMG, like, yeah, please, we've got to chalk it up at that point. But there was a lot of talk about it, right? I'll just share what they had to say on the flank, especially especially Eggs, definitely was throwing some roasts the way of Crimsix and Clayster right now. I'm basically saying, look, if it needs to be a two-person change, as the guys all agree it has to be a two-person change, they can't just keep swapping out a fourth player in place of Royalty and Neptune and in that type of role, even though I kind of think that's what they'll continue to do for at least a couple of months or so. If they do want a two-person swap, one of Clayster and Crimsix has to go.
Do you maybe think about trying out like running Crim or Clay running a sub and like swapping people around? Like,
wow, no, what did you say? I think there's going to be multiple changes from New York after the major. That's my hot take.
Everything's on the table for New York. The only team that's tried the 5-man thing was Seattle, but this is for year one. They were already pre-chalked.
Special guest, Mr. Doug Sensamara. What do you think is New York's biggest problem right now, Doug? And do you see any more changes coming through to New York, Doug?
Yeah, I think after the major, there's definitely going to be changes. I think the only way they don't make a change is if they get top 3.
I think it's a two-person change.
I think they should do a two-person change, personally.
Well, as an active player, it's hard for me to say like who I think should be dropped, who should be replaced.
Right. So don't say that. But do you think it should be 2 people, not just swapping that 4th player out?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a 2-person thing.
So you think you said you think it should be a 2-person change, right? And I think all of us right now can agree that Hydra is the safest player by a mile. Like, he's not in that conversation.
New York even loves Hydra. I'm pretty sure
New York will keep Paco and then figure it out from there.
That begs the question then, if it is a 2-person change, then it's Crim or Clay, right?
The problem is there isn't.
It can't be Hydra.
There isn't a trade market for either of those players right now. Like,
but
that's
it doesn't have to be a trade market, Ben.
They're gonna have to make a move and then have to wait. Yeah, but they're gonna have to then wait, and in order to move, like, part of this is how do you also find a home for those guys? Because I don't think they're just gonna want to chill on the bench, and you can't drop boats. So like they've got to move someone off their books. It's just really hard because there isn't a market for them at the moment. There's not like other teams that are like gonna want to swap out main ARs. You know what I mean? So it's just a really tricky situation. Plus, I know they're probably on big contracts, so the mechanics of that are really difficult.
So 9, okay, then they're on 9. You were right, but they're whatever. They're close. They're close. They're 1-11.
Paris actually
but is that? Like, that's bad enough to where, like, they got to start getting roasted at this point, right? Not in roasted, but I mean, like, no. I don't think it's justified. Do you remember when my EG team went like 0-10 in a stage and just searching a Shoy?
Yeah, I was sitting next to Bance in the green room and he was losing floor today.
There was literally segments from the analyst desk talking about it. Like, bro, this is Clay and Crim. These guys are on like $300,000 contracts and they're 0-9 in hard point.
Dude, 0-9.
It's hard point.
And the fact of the matter is, if they finish stage 1 at 1-4 in the regular stage and they go top 12 at the major, you've got to think that some serious changes need to happen. Because if you don't make changes quickly, like, you're not going to win the world championship, right? The goal here is to win champs. And like, if you're going to be top 12 and you keep most of the roster going forwards, it doesn't really instill all that much confidence. Now, I mean, look, right now their bracket is completely woeful because they're down here in losers right to the bottom. They played the loser of Los Angeles, Thieves, and Toronto. That's, of course, a massive game up in the winner's side. Probably the spiciest game, I would argue, of round 1. Toronto right now have certainly fallen off the pace a little bit, but I think back at LAN they'll probably be even better. Thieves also at LAN are going to be a very scary force as well. So I just can't really see a world in which New York Subliners, especially with their hardpoint, like, let's say Thieves lose this and go down to losers. Like, there's no way Subliners are winning a single hardpoint here against Thieves. And even if Ultra lose, it seems still very unlikely, right? Because Ultra's so good in the other game modes, their hardpoint has maybe been a bit questionable. But if New York can't win a hardpoint to save their life, they're 0-9, as X was certainly making very clear, then, I mean, they're just going to lose this, right? They're going to be top 12. It's difficult to see them not placing top 12, to be honest, at this major, which does make you think, okay, what are they going to do then? If Royalty hasn't turned this team around very quickly, like, I mean, what do? You bring Neptune back into the team? Crimsix mentioned that as a possibility at the very least. Do you swap out another player for Royalty? Do you bring in like a guy like Johnny, for example, that maybe they were considering from challenges? But surely if you're going to continue to make moves like that, then the issue might not necessarily be, the new guy you're bringing in, but just the core of the team in general. And of course, Hydra is pretty much untouchable. Like, New York want him to be their future. He's been their best player really the last couple of years, certainly has at the start of this season, and him and Clayster were a pretty good joy last year as well, but it doesn't really seem to be working out with Crim and Clay so far in this game. The slaying hasn't been there, the fourth player hasn't really fit into their groove, and that was the theory really, that Hydra and Neptune would be the guys slaying out crazy. Crim's also been doing a decent job as well. Clay hasn't necessarily been at the pace so far, and well, Doug Sensamartin doesn't necessarily agree with Enable, because Enable straight up comes and says, look, they need a 2-person change, and after this major, because there's no real trade opportunities, one of these guys might just retire. I don't think Crim's going to retire retire anytime soon. Maybe at the end of this year, but I feel like Crim's still got another at least year or two in him. I think Clayster's certainly the more likely guy, right? At the end of the day, if they decide we might need to make some sort of change here in that main ER role, where to maybe split up Crim and Clay after just a month or so, like, look, I don't think they're going to try and make a change this drastic this early. I feel like they want to at least give it another stage, but in stage 2, after stage 2 major, that might be when the opportunities come on the horizon that other top teams are struggling as well. They might make a blockbuster move for Crim, for Clay, make something like that work, but I think they'll try and maintain this squad as they are. But still, they did make a pretty drastic change after just one weekend. Maybe they'll continue that train. Doug says he thinks they're winning Major 1. I think he actually said in the video he thinks they're going to come top 6, but I mean, even that's pretty optimistic. I think making, well, a run through losers, winning 2 series there. But if they do completely collapse, what actually is the solution here? Because it feels like for this team to win champs, I'm not sure they're going to do it with a one-man change. I don't know if this team with just Crim, Clay, and Hydra can actually be that team, unless they find a fourth that just fits them perfectly. But that seems unlikely. This was the other discussion on the flank, actually, about Real, who, of course, well, Spanish kid, absolute monster. Doug was talking about a crazy story he had playing with this guy, and well, he's actually signed it now to the Minnesota Rokkr on their academy team. Definitely one of these kids that some people are saying, look, I mean, just pick up some other guy instead of Royalty and give that one more go for maybe another stage or something, and if that doesn't work, then make the 2-man change. Because right now, making that 2-man change after stage 1, there might not be all that many opportunities out there to get some sort of other big players into the picture. Just to finish off with this from Krone as we close out the video, the odds right now to win Major 1, of course, pretty interesting to see when New York find themselves in here. We have to scroll all the way down. In fairness, they're actually significantly better odds than Paris Legion. Paris Legion, they've just decided, let's just chalk it up. Like, you'd honestly, I think it was kind of funny what Krone said in the reply. He said, you know, if you're going to chuck some money on Paris Legion, you're just better off giving it to charity. At least charities actually generate some revenue. They're down here at the bottom. New York are actually getting some respect, I think, given the bracket that they have. And I mean, yeah, Mutineers above that, Minnesota Rokkr just above that. And in fairness, you've got like Boston Breach not far above Minnesota Rokkr, just even though they're starting in winners. Now, we get up to the top, it does get kind of interesting, because FaZe favourites, Optic just behind them. Usually Optic get maybe slightly more favoured here than they should, just because more people bet on them, I guess, because they're more fans of them and stuff like that. And then Ravens actually in third, which is pretty optimistic. And then, well, in Toronto and Thieves. I guess because Toronto and Thieves have a tough first round matchup, but still, Thieves, I think a lot of people are saying, could be one of the top favourites right here. But yeah, interesting stuff. And again, of course, we have to scroll down quite a long way. But I wouldn't have said coming into this season that New York would have been so far down the pecking order after just one event. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hitting the like button tells the YouTube gods it's a good video. Others like you should see it as well. And I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you as always. Take care. And I will see you next time.